Exponents, raising a power to a power. Remember that when you have a base of 4 and an exponent of 6, the way that you say this is 4 to the 6th power. Sometimes you have to raise a power to a power. And in this case, notice that the exponent on the outside of the parentheses is in green. This number represents the number of groups that you have. Since we have two groups, we're going to make two sets of grouping symbols. And within each of those, we will put 6 copies of 4 being multiplied by each other. So when we have our simplified form, you'll notice that the base is the same, it's 4. And we have our 4 written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times. So we have 12 copies of 4. So 4 to the 12th power is our final solution. If you notice on these examples, I've written the exponent on the outside of the parenthesis in green. This is the number that represents how many groups that you have. So looking at our first example, the exponent that's in green on the outside is 5. So that means we're going to have 5 groups being multiplied by each other. And within each of those groups, we have 2 copies of 5 being multiplied by each other. Five is the only base that we've written or that we see. So that's going to be our base in our simplified form. And if you notice, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 copies of 5 being multiplied by each other. So 10 becomes our exponent. So our simplified exponential form would be 5 to the 10th power. Let's try the second one together as well. How many groups will we have? That's right, 4, because it's the exponent on the outside of the parentheses. What will we write within the parentheses? Very good, 2 copies of 2 being multiplied by each other. Since 2 is the only base that we wrote, that will be our base. And if you count the copies that we've written of 2, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 becomes our exponent, giving us 2 to the 8th power as our final answer. Pause the video here and try the next 3 examples on your own. Unpause the video to see if you simplified them correctly. Now for this last example, you can see that there's more than one base. And that's okay. That just means that within each of our groups, we're going to have to write the base the given number of times. So you can see that the first base that we have is x, and there's 3 copies of it in each group. Aside from the x, we also have y being multiplied by those x's, and we have 2 copies of y in each group being multiplied. So when we go to simplify our answer, the first base that we have is x, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 copies of x. And then if we look at our y's, you'll see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 copies of y. So our final answer would be x to the 6th, y to the 4th. Take a second and look at the original form of each of these expressions and compare it to the simplified exponential form that you came up with as your answer. Do you notice anything? One thing that you should notice is that the base is the same. Here the base is 5, and it's also 5 in our simplified form. Now, if you look at the exponents, you should notice that when you had these 5 groups with 2 copies of 5 in each of them, we came up with 10 copies of 5. So another way that you can do this, besides writing out the expanded form, is you can just multiply these exponents. 5 groups with 2 copies of 5 in each gives us 10 copies of 5. Take a second and see if it works with the rest of the examples. And then if you look at the last example, it works as well. You have 2 groups, with 3 x's in each, which gives us 6 x's total. And you also have those 2 groups that both contain 2 copies of y each. So 2 times 2 gives you the 4. So when you're raising a power to a power, what you can remember is that you can just multiply the exponents. And remember, you have to multiply the exponents of every base that's within the parentheses. So if you look at this final example, we actually have 2 bases. We have a number and a variable. And if you notice, they don't have any exponents. Well, whenever there isn't an exponent, that means that it's just 1 copy. So if it helps you, it is okay while you're working to just write in that 1. So if we were going to expand this final answer, we would have 4 groups. And within each group, we would have 1, 3 being multiplied by each other, as well as 1x being multiplied. So as you can see, in each group we have 2 different bases, which means our answer should also have those 2 different bases. So if we look at our 3 first, you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 copies of 3. And if we would have used the shorthand version, we could have just said, well, each of our 4 groups has 1 3 in it, and 4 times 1 gives us that 4. And the same should work for the x. If you look at our next base of x, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 copies of x, so x to the 4th. And if you return to our original problem, you can see that we have 4 groups, each with 1 x in it. And if we multiply that, we get x to the 4th. Now, 3 to the 4th, x to the 4th is the answer, but we can simplify further. We know that 3 to the 4th is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, and we can go ahead and carry out that math. 3 times 3 is 9, times another 3 would give us 27. And if we multiply that by 3, we'll get 81. So our ultimate answer, the completely simplified answer, would be 81 times x to the 4th power. And that is how you raise a power to a power.